Why are words so difficult? We've got our linen stitch slash... Hello, welcome to the Crochet Cakes YouTube channel. Today I feel the urge to crochet a garment with you. Now you might be saying, Clarissa, didn't you just have a handmade wardrobe closet purge? Why yes I did. Thank you for reminding me. However, I feel like you cannot have enough summer garments, especially because when you go outside, you're gonna sweat a bunch and you're gonna need to immediately put that garment in the wash. Therefore, you need to have another one lined up for the next day when you also venture outside and sweat buckets. So today, I have in mind something that maybe will be a simple garment, we will see, but it is entirely based on granny squares and granny triangles. Yes, I know, not such a novel concept anywhere in the world, especially in the Crochet Cakes channel, because I did design the granny number 5 top, which does use squares and triangles. But in that case, it only uses them to crochet the neckline. Now we are going to be crocheting a slinky little summer top. So let's talk design.
Okay, so the basic idea is to take squares, but instead of placing them as you normally would, we're going to be placing them at a diagonal. So they kind of look like a diamond shape, right? So that would be square 1 to cover the bust, and then square 2 to cover the other side of the bust. And we would continue filling in the gaps formed by the diamond shapes until we're happy with the top. At the moment, I'm thinking of using 9 squares to crochet up the front, 2 to cover the bust, 3 squares for the waistline, and then 4 for the lower waist / hip area. Of course, this is just at the moment. I will probably change my mind later on when I actually have some squares to join.
Now for materials, I am thinking of using this gorgeous yarn that I bought at I think it was the Orange County Yarn Crawl. I know I was with Chelsea and it was the most beautiful, perfect girlish date ever, at least in my opinion. Anywho, we had these beautiful skeins of yarn, right? And I cannot wait to use them. Also, I like to think that I'm on a roll this year with buying yarn and using it in the same year. So now I think we are 3 for 3, which is good. It's good. Okay. Now that we have discussed design and yarn, I think we can just go ahead and maybe research a little bit about the type of granny square that we want to use to crochet this top. Okay. Okay, I've been an hour looking for a granny square and I haven't found one that meets my standards yet. I want something closed around the chest area so you don't necessarily have to use a full bra if you don't want to, but I also want something that's at least texturally interesting, although to be fair, this yarn is beautiful on its own, so I'm just considering going with a moss stitch square for covering up the chest, but
No buts, we are indeed going with a linen stitch / we're right back to the beginning. We're going with a linen stitch square, okay? I think I'm going to use this fingering weight yarn with a 4mm crochet hook, but it would probably be good practice to actually try out the type of linen stitch square that I'm going to be making in a yarn that is thicker, so I don't actually have to frog back so much. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's take a step back and actually do a written mock-up. So currently we start with a magic loop, right? Then we do a square. But how many single crochet should I do in my first round into the magic loop? So I start at a corner and then I need single crochet, and then I do another corner, so that's single crochet chain 2, right? And since this is linen stitch, we're going to be skipping stitches between each completed single crochet. Okay, let's try beginning with 16 single crochets because that's what I'm mocking up here. Like many of you, I also do not like swatching, but I don't mind it so much anymore after watching a podcast from Sandra of Cherry Heart. She shared like all the background of her creating new squares, and it just felt so liberating to know that it doesn't have to work on the first go. I don't know. I kind of feel that the beginning with like 16 stitches is a little bit too much because I really don't like the hole that it leaves in the middle. Yeah, we're gonna dial this back.
Let's try this again. We've got our, I keep wanting to call this a mitered square, but it is a linen stitch square or a moss stitch square. We've got it all figured out, so I'm just gonna grab the 4mm hook and the fingering weight yarn and get started. And I will meet you back here when I've figured out like the size I'm gonna make for these squares. Okay, this is beautiful. Honestly, I really think this square is beautiful, but I also think it's a little bit too closed to be a summer top. But so I'm gonna do some extra rounds of something else and we can compare. Okay, so status. This is a square that I remember that I had in my library, and I just want to compare it. Obviously, it's a lot more open. I'm using a 3mm hook, so even though it's very open, I don't expect much drape with it, but it's meant to be that square right there. So it's beautiful and it's lacy. This is a literally pineapple granny square that I found on Ravelry. This is the start of it. I'm not sure if I want to go like full granny square lacy route, or if maybe I want to like substitute the granny squares for solid stitches, or if I'm gonna go I keep wanting to call this a miter square, but it's not. It's a moss stitch linen stitch. So we're gonna deliberate by eating some cake. Okay. Okay, so that was another cake fail. It's smushy, but it does taste like strawberries, which is an improvement, I guess. That didn't really help me come to a decision, except that now I need to pause everything to try and perfect this strawberry loaf cake recipe. But I also am hungry, so I think I'll just have an early dinner and then we can get back to crochet work tomorrow or later this evening.
I know there are people that believe that having more than one hook in the same size is excessive, but when you tend to drop hooks right on the head, it doesn't feel that excessive because once you drop a crochet hook right on the head, starts splitting yarn. It's just not pleasant to work with. So I think it might be time to find a new favorite 4mm crochet hook. Saying that, do you have a favorite size of crochet hook? Let's see if our 16 round linen stitch square covers the boubage, at least for my itty bitty titty committee. Okay, that looks very promising. I think we're going to stick with it. And just for reference, without blocking, this square measures 5.25 by 5.25. Of course, we're going to be using the square at a diagonal, but we'll come back to the measurements later on in this video. For now, we're going to block it, and I like to wet block my squares, and then I'm going to pin them in place because I do not actually own a granny square blocker. Now that the square is dry, let's remove our blocking pins, or our blocking combs technically, and take the final measurements for our linen stitch square. This is a 16 round linen stitch square crocheted with a 4mm dot crochet hook. Yes, gauge changes with the brand of hook that you're using. Okay, so our final measurement is a 5.5. Let's continue building on all the squares that we're going to need for the front of the garment. So we already have the 2 that cover our boobs, and now we need the 3 that go at the bottom. And for the bottom, I'm going to be using the Spanish moss colorway, and I'll meet you back here when we can pin this all into our model and decide the rest of the construction. As we saw in the beginning sketch, we're going to be turning these squares at a 45-degree angle to get a diamond shape. Now for the front, we have a total of 5 squares, 2 to cover the chest area, and then 3 to go in what we're calling row 2 that would go around our waist. I crocheted all of these squares using a 4mm crochet hook. The 2 chest squares were crocheted using the dot hooks from We Crochet, which makes them just a tiny smidge smaller than the bottom squares.
I know we drew the schematics of this top together, but now that I have the physical squares attached to the bodice, I feel better directing the next part of this design. So while these squares block, I'm gonna get started on the back of the top. Now for the back, we can kind of see the silhouette of the square. Actually, you can't. Okay, let me bring you lower. Whee! And zoom you out. Oh. There we go. So for the back, we can kind of see that the square peaks here and the square peaks here. So we're gonna need to place square here and then on either side. So I'm thinking 3 squares in the back as well. Let's test it out. Okay, so we're seeing that for the back, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have 2 squares and they're going to meet. It's going to widen this here. And then to cinch it all together, there's going to be a triangle here and then a triangle here at the bottom to fill in the gaps. Okay, so that took me a while to imagine because obviously when you pin it on the mannequin, it's going to be very tight, but we're going for a loose fit. So, yeah. I'm indecisive about this construction, but I'm just gonna go ahead, block my squares, and then start joining the front so that later on we can get a better picture of the back. We have a little bit of an idea of how the back may look, but I just want a clearer picture. And I'm the type of person that needs to at least have a piece of the puzzle complete in order to start visualizing all the rest. So again, we're gonna block the squares and get moving.
To block these squares all crocheted with the 4mm crochet hook, I'm going to stack them up one on top of the other and stretch them out until they're all roughly the same size, and then pin the corners and then keep stretching it and pinning. To begin crocheting the back portion of our top, I'm going to be going down a hook size. I'm going to be using a 3.75 millimeter crochet hook, and that is because my back, and I know with most of us this can also be the case, our back isn't as wide as our front sometimes, and you need more space in the front to accommodate the ladies, but in the back, that's not necessarily true. So I do want my back to be a little bit smaller than my front. Once our pieces are all finished blocking, we're going to weave in ends. I know, this may shock a lot of you. It even shocked me. But for this project, I decided, this is small enough. Let's treat ourselves to actually weaving in all the middle ends before we actually begin joining our squares, and let ourselves breathe a little bit, because we're going to have to weave in a lot of ends once we join. Okay, these are our 2 back stitches, so all these stitches are for the front. And I know that when we work in the round, it's very clear to define which one's the front of our work, which one's the back of our work. But for the linen stitch square, I really like the texture at the back of the square, so the back of the square is going to be the front of the square. Now, these deeper colored green pieces from the Bad Romance colorway are going to be row 1, or the top of our top. And then row 2 is going to be the grayer of the greens, so the Spanish moss squares, and we're going to start building them something like this. I kind of want the top to be reversible, so I'm thinking of using the mattress stitch seaming join to join these all together, but that's going to be slow. Anyway.
As you saw, I'm trying a new to me join method, and it's new to me, but also not, because I think this is the mattress stitch join. I've just never completed it successfully because I get lost in the ins and outs of this join. Like, I literally get lost. I'm like, was I in the front or was I in the back? So it's very heavy on the eyes. Anyway, I'm gonna keep joining this, and once I've completed one square joined, we can take a look at how many are left.
All right, I've already joined one square, and the darker green portion is what I'm calling chest plate one. So at the bottom, what we're joining right now would be kind of like the waist section. So the next square goes right to the bottom left as we are looking at it, but let me explain better. Let's give you a little bit of a better idea of how we're joining this. So right now you can see this would be the chest plate one. Let's call it that, chest plate one. So if we look at our reference, which you're actually doing right now, you're looking at the screen, then I'm going to color in purple. This would be the right side of my body. So this square and this square are joined. Okay, so we've joined that. Now I'm going to be joining in this middle square. And originally, as you can see, I had planned to do a third row, but I think it's going to be too big. Like the third row is going to make this a very, very flowy top, which if you're going for that, I think that's great. But I'm actually thinking that here, and I'm going to draw it in purple again, so you can see here is where I would do my triangle. We're going to play around with that and see, because I might find that I actually want it to be more closed based on where it sits on my body. But right now, as I said, we're going to begin joining this square. So the join finished here. The join finished here. And now we're going to go up this way. Okay? I know we're upside down right now on the screen, but that is the idea behind all of this. And then, of course, that means that after I complete this one, we can join the other chest plate number 2. I know that originally we had talked about doing 2 squares in the back, and I think that's great if you need to widen the top. But for me, only 1 square, it's going to be enough to cover my back. So obviously it's laying very low right now, and we're going to have to like fill in the gaps with the triangles, but you can kind of get the idea that with just 1 square at the back, I have the perfect circumference that I need. Now, instead of doing our third row of squares, I think I'm going to go ahead and do some triangles. You could, of course, do a third row of squares. It would look very nice, but I'm going to go with triangles here because I'm just going for a skimpy summery top. Okay, so here our top is flat, so you can have a better idea of what I mean by only using 1 square in the back. As you can see, just placing 1 square in the back kind of meets the corners of the squares that were on either side in the front, and it leaves us with a very neat area that we just need to fill. So I could fill it by just doing 2 squares and placing them at a 45-degree angle in the back so it mimics the front. But what I think I'm actually going to do is just do some triangles to square off our back.
So what do you think up till now? I am so excited with how this top is coming together, and also the possibilities with just experimenting with the placement of the triangles, or whether or not you do more of the diamond shaped squares. I'm so excited. I kind of want to make more of them because I just feel like a strappy summer top where I live is a good idea. And honestly, I spent most of the summer days in the house with this and a cardigan. So clearly I need to crochet a cardigan and more strappy tops. I know we just did a closet purge, I know, but strappy tops. Another caveat, that feels a little bit weird saying that because honestly, this summer I am vacillating between wearing strappy tops with cardigans in the house and also just wearing plain old sweaters. I like the versatility of a strappy top with a cardigan though, because then you can take your cardigan off when you venture into hell, because it's hot.
To fill in the gaps, we can do with like a linen stitch triangle, but I'm thinking I want a bit more of a lacy border. So I'm probably just going to go with a traditional granny triangle, or I guess formerly called a half square triangle. And I'm going to be working them up with a 4mm crochet hook for the front and a 3.75mm crochet hook for the back. Altogether, I need 2 triangles for the front and 4 triangles for the back. At the end, our triangle should fit snugly in the spaces between our 2 squares. Our half square triangle should look something like that, or we could also have opted for the obtuse triangle, but I prefer the openness and the laciness that the half triangle will give it. Also, I will link this book for you down below. I really like it. Okay, let's continue. We're ready to add in straps, and then after that it'll just be the final details like, do I want a bottom border, do I not want the bottom border? But so far, I really love that it's just a strappy summer top. Now, I think I want to work the border and the straps all in one go, and the straps are going to be placed somewhere around the middle of the back triangle. But like I said, I'm thinking we're gonna work the straps and the border all in one go. So I'm gonna start from the right side facing, okay? The right side on the right side facing. I'm gonna go all the way around. And once I reach the top of the left chest plate, then I will start working foundation single crochet for the strap and connecting it to the back here. Then we work our way back up and continue towards the front. To work this top border, I'm going to be using single crochet stitches with the 3.75mm crochet hook, and I'm going to be working 2 single crochets per double crochet bar, because since we're working at the top border, we're actually working into what was the bottom portion of our triangle, and that is like double crochet bars. Also, in order to ensure that the stitches are the same height, when I reach that center point of the magic circle, I'm going to work a half double crochet into like in between the 2 granny stitches. I've reached the central chain 2 space of the left side when worn, so now we're going to start working up the strap. I'm going to be working 46 foundation single crochet. I know currently in the video I'm doing chains, but I didn't like the look of those chains, so instead I'm going to work 46 foundation single crochet. I'm going to connect it to the back. After we've slip stitched to our desired spot in the back, I recommend you try it on to make sure the strap actually stays on your shoulder and doesn't fall off. But after we slip stitch, we are going to slip stitch again so that we can really lock in that chain. And then we're going to turn our work and we are going to work our way up our foundation. And that would be a total of 46 single crochets. And then we continue working our way down the front of the top, do our other strap, and then we complete our top border. For the bottom border, I went up to a 4.5mm crochet hook. I did a round of single crochets and then I did a round of single crochet V-stitch.
And that is our strappy summer top. I am so happy that you were able to join me. I'm even happier that we were able to use some of our stash and that I'm adding to the green portion of my wardrobe because I am a green girly, okay? I have so many different shades of green that I like, but I'm really digging these darker, moodier greens, not just like the chartreusey, hello, I'm here greens, you know, these darker, moodiers. I'm in my crone era greens. I really, really like them. And as I said, this used less than 100 grams, and the versatility, there is so much that you can do with this construction because just by adding rounds to your granny square, you can make your top bigger. You could also make your granny squares a lot smaller and change the construction of the top just slightly so that you use more squares. You could add a peplum at the bottom to make it really flirty. You could even continue adding granny squares at the top to make a t-shirt construction. In fact, I actually think that Lee of Coco Crochet Lee does have a top that uses this, twist this on its side granny square and builds it up to create a t-shirt. So I'm gonna link that for you down below. I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna link it because I also think it's a really, really fun way to use up stash, combine colors, and just create garments that are gonna fit your life, your style, and your needs. Because I know we just had a closet purge, but the more I look at my closet, the more I study my daily activities, the more I realize that there are just certain gaps in my wardrobe for things that are easy to take on and off and are easy to transition from being inside the air-conditioned house to going outside into 100-degree weather. And also, who doesn't like strappy summer clothes to just hang around at the beach? Maybe you're doing a barbecue. There's just so many potentials for a strappy summer top that I'm so happy that we decided to make one together. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you want any more details on the construction of this top or materials or anything like that, there is a blog post that I am linking in the description box below that goes along with this video. And if it's not out by the time this video is out, send me a little message because it probably is that it's still in the editing stages and it will be uploaded. But trust me, there will be a blog post with all the written details that you can refer to if you yourself want to make a similar garment. Again, thank you so much for being here. I wish you some very, very happy crafting moments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!